She absolutely buried the lead, did not tell us that she was doing the third thing. And so you end up with moments like this.
Enjoy Jillian Sakovitz.
I'm with U.S. Women's head coach Kacey White. Kacey, how would you assess the first half performance from your side?
Well, I think we're playing for, trying to get into a championship game. This is what you expect. You expect this type of intensity. We settled into it a little bit and started to figure out a few things and had some great opportunities. So I think we grew into the half.
I have to ask you, more than a decade after your own professional career ended, did you ever think you'd be the head coach of your former teammates again?
Coaching peers is nothing I ever thought I would necessarily be doing, but we have such a great group and they work so incredibly hard. It's just an honor to be here.
Thank you, Kacey.
Thank you.
So you bury the lead with us.
Sorry.
Was it supposed to be a state secret going into TST that you were coaching the women's national team?
Not at all. It's just been a little while since we spoke on here. I actually knew probably about 6 to 8 weeks before. And Heather had come to me and said, well, actually Heather and Kendall Fletcher, who was my college roommate, she coached last year when she was pregnant. And she had missed the year before with an ACL injury. And I had assisted her last year. And they both were like, let's get coffee. I was like, okay, let's get coffee. Sounds good. We always get coffee every couple months. And the first thing they said was, we want you to be the head coach this year for TST. Kendall's going to play. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. But it was a great experience. We had such a good time. And it was, two of my great college friends being able to hang out with, and plus everyone else. So it was great.
Yep. So what did you learn about yourself as a coach, coaching in that rather unique format?
It was a year since I've coached in general, but I said it in that interview, coaching peers is very different. And like wrangling everyone in, a lot of excited, competitive type A personalities, myself included. But what I learned about myself was that I could do that. And it's a little daunting. I've got Michelle Akers on my staff, who 10-year-old Kacey would have been freaking out when she was like, great job this week. I was like, thank you, Michelle Akers. Love you. And I've even been around her for years. So that was a lot of fun, coaching Heather, telling her, what to do, and Kendall what to do, and Allie Long and all these people. It was just a great experience. What I realized too was that, everyone has so much respect for everyone on our roster, from our massage therapist to our athletic trainer to a head coach to a player. And that's what's really unique about our group that Heather puts together every year.
I was going to ask, did the players actually listen to you when you gave this, like, hey, I see this? Were they listening to their coach?
I think so. I didn't know how it was going to go. We had pregame meetings with scouting reports and how we were going to play. And I think at first, a lot of them know that I've coached, but they've never seen me coach or experienced me coaching besides one or two of them. So to see me in that environment and then to get into halftime, a lot of times I was just the calming voice with a little bit of tactics. Here's what we're going to focus on, because everyone's so competitive and into it. Mm-hmm. I had to figure out what's the priority. And I had the eyes looking right at me. So I was very humbled that I could do that with players that I have a lot of respect for and that I played with.
Very, very cool stuff. And you can go back on Kacey's Twitters and you can see like the interactions, because they had you wearing a mic and they had all of the behind the scenes stuff. So it was very, very cool. But yeah, it's like all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute. It's like she's doing that in addition to everything else. So we're in the World Cup break and we are in an international window for the women's team. We just played some sound from Emma Hayes as they get ready for the second match in this 2-game roadie in Brazil. She wanted to do this. She's like, we need to be challenged. We're a year away from World Cup, so we're going to go into this environment. We're going to, embrace all of the noise that's attached to it. And it's been kind of cool to hear Emma Hayes in all of this sit there and say, no. This is what we're going to expect. We need to do this kind of stuff. A lot of coaches wouldn't necessarily go down this road, and Emma Hayes is with the national team in the break.
She's brilliant in so many ways, and there's a lot of responsibilities as a head coach. One of the big ones is preparing your team, and preparation means a lot of things. And I love that she, a year out, says, we're going to be facing this anyways. Might as well now, and let's see what we're made of, and let's have something to draw back on. In a year from now, if we hit a little bit of adversity, when you're preparing your teams at the highest levels, whether it's youth national teams, senior national teams, you don't want those type of experiences to happen in the main tournament. So there's a lot of foresight in this, a lot of wisdom, because if you think about it, if they go there and they had won in a difficult environment, then you say, look what you can do. Look at this environment, look what you did, how you withstood it, and you came out on top. So that's a win. If you lose, which they did, then you use it as a catalyst and a motivation and saying, hey, this is on purpose. We're testing ourselves. This is why we brought you here. It's win-win. Even though from the outside it's a loss, it's a win-win from a coaching perspective, from a philosophical perspective, and then still to have a chance today to be able to get the win. That could go brilliantly well if they're able to come in and get that tonight.
18 caps for you, right?
Yes.
What was the loudest barn you ever played in on the road?
It would have been Germany, was the biggest crowd and the loudest crowd ever that we played in. So that's the one that pops into my mind as the biggest and most hostile crowd, but it was still a little bit more European. There was still like the clapping and the, respect for the game in a lot of ways. I don't know. I definitely did some under 21 things in Brazil, which was interesting. But we weren't getting the crowds, of course, that the senior teams are getting. However, they were in these different neighborhood areas, and we would have all these people coming to the sides, and we were 19, 20 years old yelling at us and things like that. So you kind of experience different types of environments, whether it's the amount or just the people in the crowd being excited and getting after you a little bit.
How do you handle the hostile noise if you can't hear and you're trying to sit there and actually function? How do you handle noise from the outside so you can actually do your job?
There's different levels of noise. I think if you speak to most professional athletes, you actually block out a lot of it when you step onto the field. It seems a little bit strange that you can do that, but there's such a crystal clear focus when you go into a game that a lot of it can be blocked out now and becomes a little bit of white noise to a degree. Now, if it's really raucous and really loud and people are screaming at you and things like that, you definitely hear things. I mean, there's things that you hear along the way. But for the most part, my experience and a lot of my teammates' experience was, just focusing on the task at hand, and you have to be so hyper-focused that you can't really take in anything else. Now, the noise part of not being able to hear one another, that's an interesting one. And that's where your experience of playing with one another becomes a very big deal. This isn't a national team moment, but I played at Navy in college, and they were doing chants and they were playing, and I couldn't hear from me to 5 yards away. And it was amazing as a college student being able to do that. But also it was like, I can't give you information, and it can be incredibly difficult in that regard.
The other national team, I don't know if you've heard this, but they're in this tournament coming up.
Oh, really? Is it a big one or no?
It might be. I don't know. 5,500 at practice yesterday out in Irvine. And as you've been kind of globetrotting and keeping an eye on things and enjoying Wrigley Field at the same time that you might be watching the men's national team, when you look at this World Cup and the U.S., what does it mean to represent your country?
Oh, gosh. I almost become speechless when I'm asked a question like that, because it's such an honor. And when you step out on the field, doing it for the first time is a feeling like no other, of just seeing things come full circle. I think once you've started playing a little bit more, then you feel this responsibility, but also this like gift of being able to represent your country. And so going in and competing and giving everything you have is just an amazing, amazing feeling. And I still get somewhat emotional going to the game this past weekend in Chicago, watching and knowing. I think people thought, like, my dad probably looked at me like I was about to play, because I was like, oh, this is so great. Look at them. Like, they're coming out on the field. Like, I was so excited in that preparation for a world event and knowing what that feels like, because for the 18 times I was able to step on the field, I wore the jersey more, being on the bench, not getting into games, but being on the field was just such a wonderful experience for me. And I love seeing that for other people.
So then what was your first cap? And when you're standing on You're standing at center line in front of the bench with the fourth, and the fourth wants to put up the board however they did it. What's that like for you when you get tapped? Hey, Kacey, go in. You're standing there at center line. Fourth puts up the board, and you're going out there for the first time.
Most of my experiences with the national team were exactly that, was the substitution role. But my first cap was a start.
There you go.
And I had a unique experience in that regard. I was in the tunnel, closest to my really dear friend, Lori Klupney. And I looked at her and she could tell I had like emotion in my eyes. I won't say tears, we'll say emotion, but I was overwhelmed just seeing it all kind of come together. And she looked at me and she goes, "Get it together." and like a joking way. And I was like, this is amazing. And walking out of the tunnel, hearing the music play as we enter, I'll never forget that experience. And singing the national anthem for the first time as a senior player was unreal. But you're right. The substitution part is always interesting because you're waiting. You're like, can the ball please go out of bounds? I'm trying to get in the game. So even to this day, when the ball won't go out and there's people waiting, I'm like, oh, poor people, like get them in. Because I definitely felt that feeling a lot on the national team and waiting to go in.
So what were your takeaways? And I wish I'd known this sooner because Maddie was there. And she was covering it for us, and I think you both went to the Wrigley for the same Cubs game too.
No way.
Yeah, and so when you go on the road or when you come down here, let us know. So if we can. What were your takeaways from the match at Soldier Field that you're kind of carrying with you heading into this week as they get ready for Paraguay?
The main takeaway I took was that we can compete with the top teams. I did feel in that first half, we had really nice moments. The problem is all moments matter. And so the first minute of a half in a World Cup, people punish you. I just talked about the lesson that Emma Hayes was somewhat putting her players in by being in Brazil. I hope that first minute was a lesson for our men's national team as well. You have to be switched on. How is Kai Havertz that wide open on a set piece in the first minute of the game when he's great in the air, he's a goal scorer? Those are the things that are going to matter. But if you look at the 90 minutes overall, I was really pleased with the way we played. There were some mistakes out of the back. I thought everyone had a high work rate, was working really hard. And I thought tactically we moved the ball well and did some really nice things against Germany.
Yeah, this is definitely evolving into a men's national team discussion. All right, so there have been two trains of thought on goal number one. And yes, feel free to properly hydrate because if you need to, don't worry about it.
Oh, my Tar Heel baseball team made the World Series, so I'm supporting them today.
Yes, and Florida State lost in the regional again. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
Yes. So goal number one, you were kind of getting into it a little bit, which leads us into a backline discussion, which will probably go in other places. Folks were wondering about Matt Freese and why he didn't go out and challenge. And then others were looking at Miles getting lost in the pick and not able to free himself from the pick. If you take it from the marking perspective, and you kind of got into that a little bit with Kai Havertz getting open, and then the idea of Matt Freese staying at home, how are you looking at those two elements of this? Because I didn't think that Freese could get there, so I thought that he might have made the right choice in standing pat. But then, yes, Miles getting lost in the pick and not being able to free himself.
I definitely put more of the onus on the marking because of how wide open Havertz was in getting into that space. I was actually down in that corner by the corner flag where I would have been like staring at Havertz, from like 50 yards away, but I could see how wide open he was. So I put a lot of the onus on that, especially with an outswinging ball that was floated in there. When it's floated in that way, but it's not high, I think as a goalkeeper, it can be really hard. I do think that I wonder the same thing. Could Freese have come for that? Yeah. And you hope for that. But if he comes and he can't get something on it, everyone's going to say he should have just stayed and set and tried to make the save, and the marking has to be better. So I think it's a little bit risky if he doesn't read it properly and isn't able to come to it. But the marking piece, you have one job. Stay with your mark. And I think it falls on that.
So then you end up getting an equalizer. And it was one of the purest, nastiest strikes I think we've seen in quite some time.
Amazing. Amazing. I was so excited about that.
and just mashed and hit as flush as humanly possible. Since you were in the crowd, I know probably what Maddie was looking at from the 200 level. What was it like in the 100 level staring at that when that moment happened?
Unreal. It was on the far side for me, but you could see it popping down to Robinson, and you had a pretty good view from the behind into the side of how he struck that. It was one of those that's in the net before you even realize he hit it. Like, that's how pure he hit that ball. And it was unreal. A moment like that. This is how I know I'm getting old. So I'm like, oh, I love that moment for that player. Like, instead of just looking at the soccer, I was so ecstatic for him, but also for the team to do what they did in that first minute and give up the goal, but to build within the game and then have an immediate strike like that. All those pieces are helpful for your team as they're in a send-off game ready to go. But what a moment for Anthony Robinson.
I'm going to skip past the Sané goal that made it 2-1, because then you get into changes and lineups and people are getting minutes and all this kind of stuff. And Chris Brady gets reps in the second half and all that stuff. I want to go to the end where we goes in on a challenge. I didn't think it was completely and totally off the rails. The German team did. They come and they're chasing after him, but then you see the teammates for Tim Weah come in from behind, and literally it turns into a standoff. I thought it was a telling moment that, yeah, look, fine, you want to come after us, you're coming after one, you're coming after all of us. I thought that was really telling heading into the World Cup too. I
love competitive fire, camaraderie, having your teammates back. All those things are positive. And I think in the media for years, some of that has been questioned, is like the passion and like the competitive fire and like, does this group have it? I think for 4 or 5 years since the last World Cup, that was spoken about a lot in the media. So moments like that where you come in off the bench, you go in hard on challenges, you stand up to opposition, and then you have your teammates coming in to support you. I don't mind it. I like that. You have to be a little off sometimes in some moments and like, okay, I'm a little crazy here. And that's okay. I mean, there's been so many moments where top players do things that are a little unhinged, but they're brilliant and they're genius. And maybe they're not all perfect, but I do think that you have to have moments where you see what your team's made of from the inside out. And I liked it.
I know. Yeah, this is truly evolving into a men's national team discussion, getting ready for the World Cup. Still don't know about Enciso. Might be 2 or 3 weeks. Big loss for Paraguay. I know Atlanta fans are going to be looking at Miguel Almiron and Matias Galarza as Paraguay goes in. Looking at the back line, Chris Richards got to actually be there and perform, and he was there, decent speed in practice, getting back to full song. That's the linchpin for me at the back because of what we've been seeing in a couple of friendlies and, needing cover for Tim Ream and all that kind of stuff. Chris Richards, how important is Chris Richards?
He's critical. I don't know if he is necessarily critical for the first game or two, but he is critical throughout what's going to happen in totality for the men's national team. I do believe we have a solid back line without him in there, but there's an X factor of what he can do, not only himself, but what he brings out in Tim Ream. You slightly mentioned it there. The partnership of center backs is critical at the highest level. So he has the individual piece of just being an upgrade in that position and being our starter, but also how he solidifies the entire back line.
On the right-hand side, probably Alex Freeman getting the start, and we got to see as far back as his time at Orlando City B how much trouble he can cause. Caused it at Orlando, and then folks in the league were like, ooh. And so then he goes, and he's now playing in Europe. But to have him and probably Serginho Dest on the right-hand side causing problems offensively, you get to have a right back that isn't afraid to engage, whether it's on the outside making a run, coming in, underlapping, and creating issues in numbers games. When it comes to the folks that we don't focus on enough, who are those second-level names? Because I know we're going to talk about Christian Pulisic. I know we're going to talk about, all the big names that are attached. We're going to talk about Turner and Freeze and Net. Who of those names that we don't talk about enough do we need to be talking about more, do you think, when it comes to the success of the U.S. team?
Well, you mentioned one already, in my opinion, which is Alex Freeman.
Yep.
How he can adapt to this level and the moment and the pressure of it, because I do think our back line is absolutely critical, and the confidence that they build throughout the tournament is critical. I am a huge Alex Freeman fan. I think he has such a bright future ahead of him, not only from his defending, but his ability to join the attack at every level he gets to. He gets a little bit better of how he gets wide or inverts or whatever the case may be. It's just how high of a level is it going to be right now in the World Cup? And I think he's critical in that. Another piece for me that I was excited about off the bench was Weah and Aronson. They were the two for me that came into the game and looked like they wanted to make a difference, looked like they could take games over. And especially Aronson off that left side, he was getting in the 1v1s. He was trying to get into the box, create things for the comeback. The reason I mentioned those two is because, in my opinion, they could easily be starters. So the first two off the bench or three off the bench, keeping your starters humble, hungry, competitive, or being right there to come in to spell that last 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
We know that all these games, a lot of them come down to the end. So who are those first few players that are going to come into games and make a difference? And I think it could be those two.
Okay. Where are you going to be Friday? You going to be at home for a change?
Oh, yeah. I'm home for such a long time, about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Yes, but I'm going to be home glued to my couch starting Thursday. I mean, maybe I'll go watch it somewhere, the U.S. game on Friday. But for the next month, 5 weeks, I will pretty much be sticking to my couch and watching games. So
there you go. Okay. Major League Soccer.
Yes.
And you've been in Salt Lake. You've been in Frisco, I think, since we last talked. I think you were in Houston again at Hell in a Shell. I'm trying to remember where else you've been recently.
Denver was my last game.
When it comes to, I mean, today we're having Jim Curtin announced as the new head coach in Austin. And it's interesting that Curtin gets announced and he'll be there at the end of the year. That's not the interesting thing I was getting to. But he's going to have a say in the sporting director search. Traditionally, it's the other way around where you bring in your sporting director. He or she has someone in mind. Then you bring in the coach. It's inverted now in Austin, and they're turning the keys over to Jim Curtin. Press conference starts in a little over an hour. It's an interesting hire, but they gave him the keys to the car.
And we'll see if it works. And going from the other direction, there's usually this process that's tried and true. And this one's a little bit different. But you have someone like him coming in with the experience he has. I think they might know what they're doing. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And it's just how quickly do those changes occur? Like you said, with him coming in at the end of the year, that's an interesting one because you leave the environment somewhat open. And what you get now versus what you get then could be a little bit different. So that's going to be interesting to see how they bridge that gap.
Yep. And Philadelphia is looking for a new coach, Bradley Carnell. It seems like, and this is the baseball analogy that I use, and this happened in St. Louis and then it happened in Philly. First time through the batting order, season number 1, you kind of don't know how to look at Bradley Carnell and how he's doing things offensively and how tight things are and how successful they are. He was found out, I think, in St. Louis in the playoffs when it was a best of 3, because if you go in, you see somebody once, it's a little hard. Then St. Louis City, with everything they did, top of the table, pie plate, and the whole thing, you get found out in a best of 3. Then he goes, has issues in year number 2, which finally still lets him go, goes to Philly. Same thing. Happens in Philly, successful year 1. Then year 2, second time through the batting order in the Eastern Conference, he got found out, and we were wondering what was going to maybe go down there, how much patience they were going to have. It turns out they waited until the break, and now Philly's going to have to rebuild from the bottom of the Eastern Conference and figure out what they're going to be doing from there.
We say this for players, might as well say it for coaches. The sophomore slump can be real. And when you come into a place as a player, as a coach, you are new. Everything's new. And players, staff, everyone want to believe that this is the right direction. And it could be. Mm-hmm. But there's this energy that comes with a new hire. And when you're in your first year and you're new as a player, or you're new as a coach, a lot of times it can be easier to perform in that because you get more the benefit of the doubt, you get the energy, and then you can get things going. It's not that simple, but that is something that can actually happen from a psychological perspective. The other piece with Carnell that I think we always have to point out this year is the players that he lost.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't little players. They weren't small impact players. They were big impact players. But you can't also say that forever. Like, you got to figure it out. You got to figure out how to grind out a 1-0 result or get a tie on the road or whatever the case may be. And that piece just was not happening, and it wasn't turning around at a quick enough rate.
Yeah, backline is very, very young in Philly, and it's testing what they've been building through the academy. NWSL, and like I said, this has been greatest hits because we spent so much time on the men's national team. NWSL, you're very, very busy there. For those that may not know, how are you tackling the NWSL this year on air?
So I had 2 games in the middle of May, which was great. Just staying as involved with NWSL as I can, and then my next broadcast will be NWSL in July, where I'll be back on the air after my long break through the World Cup. But for me, like, the thing that's been so exciting is watching a team like the Utah Royals. We've said for years that NWSL top to bottom is the most competitive, the hardest league in the world. And I truly believe that. And you have a team like the Utah Royals who have perennially been at the bottom, and they've stuck by their coach. So to your point, we're just talking about Carnell, but they stuck by Jimmy Coonrotz because the tactics, I have thought for years, have looked really sound. They just needed to build their roster and get it to a place where they could compete. And now they're near the top of the league. And so I think that is something that's really great for the NWSL, is that every coach now can go to their club and say, look, like, we have a plan in place. Look at X club. Look at the Utah Royals. We don't want it to be 3 or 4 years. We want to do it quickly, but we can build that. And I think that's exciting about the NWSL, and is a big reason why I love being a part of it.
Yep. Denver, as a first-year club, they're pushing 500 after 11 matches. They're middle of the table. Obviously, Boston's having some growing pains there as well. Growing pains, racing Louisville and Chicago as well. But at the top of the table, you mentioned Utah. And we're going to take a little bit of credit because when Jarrett moved out to Salt Lake City, that was beginning of this season, then they've gone on their run. So we're taking Jarrett's move from here to go to RSL and be a part of things there with the Royals and RSL as to why they're now where they are in the table. San Diego, Utah, Portland, all separated by a point. Then Washington. You figured Washington, with all multiple competitions and traveling and national team and all that kind of stuff, you figured they're going to be there. They're 21 points. A lot of folks at 21. Washington, Gotham, and Current. I think Current finally woke up, 6-0 at home.
Yes, and Washington, you mentioned, everyone at the beginning was like, oh no, through like 3 games, 4 games, they had a tie here, a loss there. What is happening in Washington? And I was like, everyone's like, just relax. Like, it's going to be fine. Let's not be crazy. And they've done it. And Adriana Gonzalez, great coach, got them together. They have a good roster. They had to figure out how to operate without Croy in midfield. They had to just figure out a few things there with their team. They've done it. And the Kansas City Current as well. It was not good. Theirs was a little bit scarier, I think, than Washington's. It went a little bit longer, but Shawinga was out. And she is a complete difference maker. When you have a goal scorer like that, it can change everything. And that's exactly what's happened. How much has really changed about their team since they were losing to now? Not a lot, besides Chawinga being back in. Yes, I'm sure they've adapted. Chris Armas was able to do some things here and there. But you get a player like that back in, everyone walks a little taller, everyone feels a little more comfortable, and you can start rolling.
See, this is where I need you to get the whiteboard, because if we were – well, I'm serious, because – I was going to dive into at some point a Shawinga discussion about how you go against someone like that. If you're an opposing coach, how do you try to figure out how to neutralize her? And that was where the whiteboard, either it's a whiteboard and you drawing on it, or a whiteboard with metal.
I had a tactics board the entire TST tournament, and I haven't used a tactics board in over a year. And I was tactics boarding it up with my whiteboard, and I like the magnets better, but we didn't have those. You can just move them more so my crazy mind can move quicker. But yeah, we'll have to do that sometime. I need to get a new one. I don't actually have a tactics board, but maybe I'll invest in one for you.
Is Owen happy mommy's home?
He is, and I'm actually dog sitting my friend's dog. She's working the World Cup, so I have him for another week, and they're playing in the background. So I keep kind of like muting myself and coming back on because they're playing.
It doesn't matter to us. We're always a dog-friendly environment anyway. I had this vision of you muting because they were breaking like a vase of yours in the back.
No, it was just like lapping up water and then a toy, and then so I just was muting in and off on and off.
Whatever. That doesn't matter. Glad you're home. Glad you got to do things with your dad and globetrotter. Globetrot. I don't know
Both.
if that's.
I think you can say it either way.
Fine. We are now. Glad you're back home. Glad you catch your breath. Obviously, we'll catch up with you again next week. We'll talk national teams and all those kinds of things. It's great to see you as always. Don't be a stranger and crash at any time. If you want to vent your spleen on anything going on with this tournament, literally, you know where the garage door opener is.
Perfect. I love that. Thanks for having me.
All right, there goes Kacey D. And Kacey D, where she be? She be at home.